Facebook will undergo a civil rights audit and political bias review amid allegations it censored conservative users and discriminated against minorities. An Axios report says Facebook will bring in 2 outside advisors, one to conduct a legal audit and another to advise on potential political bias. Axios media reporter Sarah Fisher wrote that report and joins me now from Washington. So, Sarah, who's leading the civil rights audit and what do you think they'll be looking for?
Well, thank you so much for having me. So there's really 2 key players that are going to be leading the audit. One is a prominent law firm here in Washington, D.C. They'll be the ones that are actually conducting the audit, taking a look internally at whether or not there was any intentional bias towards minority or against minority groups. The other person that's involved is a woman named Laura Murphy. She's a prominent civil rights attorney, used to be with the ACLU. She's going to be advising Facebook throughout the process. But it's important to remember they're not just taking a look at this and from the left and how they are addressing minority groups. They're also taking a look at this from the right and how they could address allegations of potential political bias, censorship of right-wing voices.
So, Sarah, why do you think they're launching this audit now?
I think there's been a buildup of allegations against Facebook that they have a problem, working to make sure everyone has equal rights and free speech on the platform. If you take a look at it from the right, there were a ton of reports coming out from ProPublica, especially over the past year, that their ad tools were being abused to discriminate against minorities. So for housing ads, there also were some religious groups that were involved in there too. You remember last October, there were reports that came out that Facebook users were allowed to target ads against Jew haters. So they've had a lot of buildup over the past year of allegations that their tools were misused to discriminate against people. And then on the right-wing side, you've been hearing it these past few weeks where lawmakers, members of the right-wing media have been saying that Facebook is biased against them and censoring them on their platform. Facebook wants to get rid of any of these rumors and put them to rest, and they're only going to be able to do that by conducting an audit.
Have they ever done an audit like this before, Sarah?
Not when it comes to something like civil rights. They've done audits, of course, for things like measurement of advertising on their platform, but they haven't done one that sticks to really the core political views of the people that they work with. The thing I want to be clear about, though, is that a lot of these allegations of bias are really nuanced. So, for example, conservatives say that Facebook is censoring their voices by reducing the amount of traffic their news outlets can get on the site. Well, that can be pretty nuanced and pretty hard to prove. There have been some conservative outlets that are looking at third-party measurement tools, for example, Newswhip, and saying, or CrowdTangle, and saying, well, we're getting less traffic, so Facebook has to be censoring us. All these things are pretty hard to prove. So the audit will at least tell us if legal minds think that there's actually something there.
You were talking about that conservative bias that's so hard to prove. It really upset folks in the conservative community about this. Who's leading that effort, overseeing the conservative bias, and what will they be examining exactly?
Yeah, I mean, it did upset a lot of people in the conservative community, particularly because a lot of conservatives feel as though those left-leaning Silicon Valley companies that are founded by these idealistic young people who are now the CEOs have a bias inherently against them. The person that's going to be leading this audit is Senator John Kyle, former senator from Arizona. He and his team at Covington and Burling, which is a prominent D.C. law firm, are going to be doing that. It's not an official audit, but it will be advising Facebook as they look into monitoring this themselves. And then they're also going to work with some right-wing groups here in Washington. They've been doing some events with the Heritage Foundation. They had their Facebook's head of political and policy management, Monica Decker, go in for an event last week. So they're going to be working simultaneously with, a former lawmaker, his law and lobbying firm, and then trade groups to just sort of get to the bottom of this on the right-wing side.
A lot of people, Sarah, are asking, has Facebook been transparent enough? What have they done? What do you think still needs to be done, and do they need to do more?
It's a great question. I think leading up to this moment, Facebook never thought that they had to do transparency efforts around political bias because they would tell you we're a tech platform, we don't have any bias, we don't discriminate against any particular viewpoint. But as we're seeing that there are instances in which the platform is abused, or there were, one-off instances where Facebook employees had potentially, filtered out conservative voices, now they have to really do a good job of over-explaining to people that bias doesn't exist. So in the past couple of weeks, they've done a few things. One is they invited reporters to sit in on an off-the-record meeting. I telecasted into that meeting where they walk you through how they make content decisions. They show you pictures of the types of posts that they're dealing with and how they say yes or no if those posts can stay on their site. The other thing that they've been doing is they just laid out, quite frankly, the review material that they use to determine whether or not a post is deemed acceptable or it's not. And this, by the way, that document, it's on their website right now, is incredibly nuanced. It tells you this type of picture can go up or this type of picture can't. Here's how we evaluate it. The reason Facebook says that they haven't put that stuff up online is because they're afraid that if people know how they evaluate material, that they're going to game the system. But now they're seeing they have to find a happy ground and at least explain to people something so that they can't say Facebook is using some sort of bias.
I think you lay out just how ambitious this undertaking is by Facebook. Do you think, Sarah, that this is really going to lead to some significant change?
I think so. I think the biggest thing here is that we're seeing some leaky wheels in their ad platform. The fact that people were able to target Jew haters or they were able to, non-target minorities for housing ads means that people are taking advantage of the system in negative ways. So what we're learning is now Facebook has to address those things, whether or not they have to put more engineers on the platform or they're going to have to conduct more reviews. If we didn't have reports of this stuff, we wouldn't know where the squeaky wheels were with their tech. So I think they'll address that now.
It's a fascinating story. Sarah Fisher, thank you so much for sharing your reporting.
Thank you.